What is up, everybody, and welcome to the BJT show where I talk about sports, media, entertainment, and such things. I'm your host, Byron. And in this episode, we have some very special guests. They are professors from Cedarville, and their names are Dr. Jared Pincin, which is he's in the black suit on the left right there, you can see, and Colonel Greg Thompson, and he is in the blue blazer over there. And thank you all for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So, the basis of this podcast is we're going to talk about sports gambling and just the dangers of gambling and the risk to it. And I know you all have, warned student athletes and just college athletes and students in general about the financial risk of sports gambling. So, I wanted to talk to you all about that and get your opinion on sports gambling in general.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's certainly a conversation we have almost on a daily basis with our students.
Yeah, and one thing that we've really been interested in is just kind of bringing light onto a subject. There's really millions of dollars going into the advertisements. I think any sports fan has seen that. Any stadium or watching shows, just a ton of advertising. But there's not much out there about the risk to the regular person who's engaging in sports gambling, and it's just so easy now. It depends on what state you're in. Some states it's legal, and some states it's not. We're in Ohio here. Online sports gambling is legal. You can sports gamble on your phone. I was at a recent NFL game, and I could see people around me engaging in sports gambling there. So we were just trying to be a voice out there to say, hey, here's some things you should really be concerned about or be thinking about if you're considering online sports gambling.
All right, Dr. Jared, I want to talk to you first. I want to get your take on this first. What is your take on sports gambling as a whole?
Ooh, that's such a broad question. I think my take in general is that we have rushed into it from a legal perspective without considering some important questions. So states were so eager to grab an additional source of revenue that I don't think a lot of them thought through the details. Things economically, like what even should we tax this at, or what should be allowed to bet. Like we had a discussion here in Ohio with prop betting and college sports and pro sports. And this, of course, came to light with the situation with the Cleveland Indians and the accusations there. But states they wanted the revenue. They chased the revenue. And now we're starting to have the questions that we should have had at the beginning. And so in some ways, I feel like Dr. Ian Malcolm from the first Jurassic Park, when he was asked, like, should they do this? And he's like, that's the wrong question, right? That's not the question that we should be having. And that's kind of what we're looking at. So I just think we've rushed into it. There's a lot of moral questions with it. But my initial thing is, hey, wait a second. What are we doing? If it's all about chasing revenue, I think that's the wrong place to start.
And I'm really hoping that maybe we're at a point now with the indictments. We've seen the NBA. And also, I just read an article that Greg Sankey, the head of the SEC, has said, hey, let's take a pause on college players betting on professional athletics. That was supposed to roll out the beginning of November, and now it's on a pause till the 21st of November, in part so the different athletic directors can weigh in on it. And that really, to me, looking at this, maybe a point in time where we're saying, hey, we need to look at all the angles of this. Obviously, the amount of money that's coming in is not in the millions, in the billions for these companies that we're looking at. So they're more than happy to keep rolling this out, bringing in new customers, et cetera. And so we need to slow this down and have some conversations, I think, especially like what we've seen in the past 2 to 3 weeks.
Now, with professional sports and how they advertise gambling so much, and you got all the different prop bettings and all these different companies who pay for these advertisements for gambling, do you think it's fair for professional athletes to be penalized, so to speak, for gambling, even though it may be in a sport where they're not participating in it, like NFL players gambling on NBA or NHL or NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, and things of that nature?
I mean, to quote Adam Silver, who's come out and talked about what the most important thing, and actually Greg Sankey said this as well, integrity of the game is the most important issue to them. Now, it is hard to understand that when the next thing you see is an advertisement for DraftKings, FanDuel, what have you. It's hard to believe that that's really what they want, especially with the indictments coming out and all that we've seen in this area. So for me, it looks like just there's a lot of money flowing into not only state governments. Here in Ohio, the government gets 20%, I think is where we're at. And I don't know every state. Obviously, all of the sports league, they have actual like business relationships now. We're in an era since 2018, they've got arrangements, financial arrangements. So just like the NBA investigated Terry Rozier, nothing happened, then we see indictment. So there are incentives, and they're massive financial incentives. So that's where we want to draw some concern and say, is it the money talking, or are we making wise decisions here, not only for the players, but for the leagues? I mean, we're huge sports fans like you are. And I want to watch a game that I know is like it's a fight and everyone's playing hard. No one's throwing any part of the game to include a prop bet. That's what I want to see. That's the product we want. And I'm not sure if we're being honest right now. We watch a game, we're like 100% that we're getting that. I want to say we are, but too much has happened.
I think so. There's different questions and different audiences. So if you're a league perspective, as Colonel Thompson mentioned, you're concerned about integrity. And so everybody understands you don't want gambling on your own league, your own sport. But I think you also need a bright line, and leagues really should consider harder stances on where their players, their coaches, their trainers can be gambling as well. Because most people think of gambling as like you're betting on the winner or the loser of a game. But that's kind of antiquated when you think of prop bets and parlays. Parlays are the big driver right now. Mm-hmm. So you could be in a 10-leg parlay that 9 of it has nothing to do with your sport. And you might not even realize that 1 of it has to do with your sport. You're not paying attention. And now where are we? So if I was a commissioner of a league, I would take a much harder line than I think what they're doing right now with active participants wagering, even on sports that aren't their own. Now, I know someone's going to say, well, like, what about horse racing, which has nothing to do with the other types of athletics? And these are the gray areas that you get into. But these are the things that the league, they consider integrity. They've got to think of those types of things.
And you all talk about legitimacy, which is a big thing that, of course, sports leagues want. They want things to be legitimate and not just seem legitimate. In the past few years, do you think the legitimate side has kind of taken a downside a little bit? Because people come out and say, well, you can tell these players are gambling. You can tell something's going on, whether it's referees, players, or whoever. What do you think about that?
I was just recently looking at an op-ed written by Adam Silver in 2014, where he was kind of making the case that we should bring gambling out of the dark, and not make it like, an illegal activity. And some of the things that he was saying, he's still saying now, is that this needs regulation. So when Adam Silver is saying that we need regulation today, that's concerning. And I know I've been reading that the Senate has asked for documents, which I imagine the NBA will produce, especially if Adam Silver would like this to be regulated. But that goes to show you that this has gotten out of hand, and regulation probably is going to be helpful. I know the governor here in Ohio has asked that prop bets be regulated as well. And I don't think that ended up going through, did it? Or did it like an individual type?
They're still discussing prop bets on pro sports.
College
is
that's
different.
what it was. So you can prop bet on pro, but not college in Ohio.
I wouldn't feel comfortable about saying that the integrity of the leagues has gotten worse. I mean, we're talking about, you can go back to 1919, right, with the Black Sox. and that scandal, or the Boston College point shaving in, was at 78 or 79. Or I mean, the NBA with Tim Donaghy was at a decade and a half ago. So there have always been situations where this has occurred. I don't know if the integrity of the game is any worse. It's more of you want to protect against that, and particularly because of the ubiquitous nature of it. I mean, in the instances that I mentioned, there was no sports betting outside of Las Vegas or sort of the underground. So if you were going to do that, it was very selective, and you had to know people, or you had to go to Vegas. And if a referee shows up in Las Vegas, they're going to know that. The books are going to know that. Now you could just do it on your phone. It's just a lot harder. So it's more of a perception, and what you don't want is your perception to become reality. So no, I don't think players are throwing games. I don't think we have a major problem, though there are several teams under investigation in college basketball right now that there's questions going into last year. It's just, look, we are selfish people, all of us, and people will chase a lot of money. I mean, Terry Rozier did not need this money. We're talking about a few $100,000 to someone who made tens of millions of dollars. And that temptation is just going to be greater, for like a college athlete who might, they're making nil money now, but man, if they can make $100,000 more, that's a lot of money for them.
And speaking of placing bets and things like that, I believe there have been some instances where some NFL players have placed bets at the facility where they're playing at, and I'm not sure if it's a rule that players in the league can't gamble on other sports elsewhere, but I know it's a rule where you cannot place a bet on the NFL premises at all. And players have done that. I've seen some suspensions and things like that. But back to point shaving and whatnot, there have been some instances in the NBA where people have said, like, yeah, something is definitely going on. Like you were saying before, Terry Rozier being investigated the first time, and people are saying, well, it looks shady, but okay, clear him. And then now that all this is coming out, now it's like, oh my gosh, so is there more of this going on? And then you have players like Jonte Porter who got in trouble for, point shaving and things like that. So I think it's become a major issue for sure.
And this is actually an area where some defenders of more sports gambling will use, because the more books you have, the more information you have about odd-looking bets. So if you have, some sports book in New York that suddenly has a rash of bets on a Fordham basketball game, that's not going to get picked up in Vegas, but that'll get picked up at that local sports book. So that gives people information that something uncouth or shady might be going on. So there is a positive to having more of that competition because you get to see that information. I think the problem is it's just so ubiquitous that it's hard to track, and two, these sports gamblers are also going to become more sophisticated. So if you can place bets in 30 states, you're not going to make a run on one sports book in Cleveland, Ohio. Or if you do, you're asking to get caught.
Right.
I mean, and so that's something that we're going to see.
It's kind of a strange situation now too, because you've got, all these sports books now legalized, where you go back in time, 10 years ago, if someone's, stealing your money as a sports book, what are you going to do? Well, now you can actually go to the FBI and say, hey, these guys are, Terry Rozier came out hurt. He wasn't really hurt, and we want you to investigate and indict him. And so it's not the most sympathetic of sides on both sides. Meanwhile, what we're really talking about is I was looking up a survey done by UC San Diego, 700,000 people. Only 4% won money while online sports gambling. So there's a whole bunch of other people out there getting hurt. Well, they're not part of the lawsuit or the indictment, but maybe they are in a way to get ripped off, because when Terry Rozier steps out and maybe they put something on him, they're losing too.
Yeah. And definitely part of our concern is where, we deal with college students day in and day out, and that's a young demographic that is clearly targeted with advertising, and especially young males. I mean, we love sports, they love sports, and now there's a way to get involved in another way. So, we're trying to prevent them from falling into bad habits. That's our main concern. There's other concerns, but on a day-to-day, that's what we consider.
How do those conversations go between you all and your students in terms of sports betting and gambling in general and the risk that one could be putting themselves into?
Yeah, these are really individual conversations a lot of time. But one of the things that I try to just get them to think about is why they are participating in it. Like, what is their end goal? Is their end goal to try to chase money? Is it just an entertainment that, oh, I'm going to place a $5 bet once a year, or is this something that is a major concern? Because again, the reality is even professional handicappers, they win about 55% of the time. These are professional handicappers. We're not talking about professional handicappers there. So when you actually sit down and talk to a student of, hey, you might win for a little bit, but you're going to lose. How is this affecting your studies? How is this affecting your relationships? We care in particular about forming healthy relationships, between men and women, and we want to see marriages. But you don't want to go into that relationship hiding the fact that you are gambling and you shouldn't be, or something like that. So the conversation is very individualized, but we try to make them think about all the different margins that what they're doing could affect.
I mean, one thing we're seeing, I don't know about you, what your perspective would be, but like not a lot of talk about it because of you got some big celebrities advertising. There's not much on the other side. It looks like a lot of fun because if you like sports, it just become like part of it. So that's one part of just like starting the conversation in the first place, because we see a lot of red flags here about obviously gambling addiction. It's a serious thing for problem gamblers, and the suicide rates are quite high. There's huge concerns that we have that I think people just really aren't thinking about, of how it's going to impact their life and their livelihood and relationships. The other part of this that's really concerning is the secretive nature of it, especially now that you can do it on your phone. I mean, as a guy, if I lost a bunch of money, I'm not going to probably tell anyone about that. I'm going to keep that hidden as long as possible. But the problem is losing a lot of money is a real thing, and you can't just make that go away. And that can build up on people and have some serious consequences. And so we got college students here, so we want to get out in front of it, at least get them thinking about it, before they jump in with too much money or whatever, make a decision they think is just wrong in the first place. But I don't know if you see that perspective as well on where you're at.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I definitely understand where you all are coming from with that, especially wanting to tell the students, saying, hey, this is the dangers of gambling. This is what could happen. This is how it can affect you, not only in your relationships, but in life in general. And I think you all were talking about earlier in the show where Ohio is possibly going to legalize gambling on college sports. And I think that can affect the athletes as well, because there might bring more, I guess, negative attention toward them. And of course, people say a lot of things online if a player doesn't perform to the standard that they want and they lost money on their parlay or their prop bet, whatever it is, and just all the vitriol that athletes are subject to because of that. And I think in Ohio, that could even be, in a way, a detriment to those athletes in Ohio because they might get more heat on them, per se.
Well, that's an interesting thing that I noticed going to a college game. Now the NCAA slogan, I think it's "Draw the Line," and the NCAA was one of the greatest had the greatest opposition to sports gambling. In fact, they're the name of the case that came out in 2018 from the Supreme Court. And so now their position is draw the line. And the line is, hey, if you're gambling, please don't threaten, insult, et cetera, our players. So in Ohio, you can gamble on college sports. You just can't prop bet on it right now. But obviously, as you mentioned, that's a whole nother concern of like player safety and gamblers getting upset where they otherwise wouldn't have been. And it's also an issue of just cheering for your team instead of, your bet or your parlay or whatever, what have you.
Yeah. I don't think you can gamble like on Ohio State in Ohio. I think these rules are changing.
Oh, really?
It seems like by the month, to be honest. But yeah, it's with social media and just the ease of being able to contact athletes. And this is just becoming a bigger problem. And again, if you're at a bigger college in particular, so again in Ohio we've got Ohio State, and I lived in Alabama. You got Auburn and Alabama there. These athletes can be reached, and I'd like to say that people are doing this in the right way, but they're not. And so again, you've got, hey, you dropped the ball in the fourth quarter. I'm going to threaten you and your family. I mean, this is unacceptable behavior. We understand this. But now you're just adding more angst and stress to the athlete themselves. They're now public figures. And I know they're adults, they're 18, 19, 20, but that's still just pressure that we didn't see before because we have social media. And now we're adding legalized gambling, and we're putting two things together that are, a dangerous mix.
With these new laws in Ohio coming out about sports gambling, what would you say to any Cedarville athletes going into their respective seasons?
I'll let our lawyer handle this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's for an NCAA athlete currently as we stand. Obviously, we mentioned that this could change, but currently, college athletes, we're NCAA 2 school here, but any NCAA athlete is by policy banned from sports gambling under the NCAA rules. Also, it's illegal. Every state has different rules, of course, because this is rolling out state by state. But here in Ohio, you have to be 21. So a lot of them aren't 21. And I mean, if I were giving them my wisdom and advice, it'd be like, stay away from this. This is not something that's going to benefit you or the sport. And I just see a lot of red flags here that you should really be thinking through. Just get good at what you do and try to win for our team.
And that's the danger with the NCAA trying to blur the lines with saying you're not going to be able to gamble on college athletics, but you're going to be able to gamble on pro sports. And I understand sort of conceptually what they're doing there. But again, with props and parlays and how many different combinations of bets that you can do, having just a clearer line of, hey, when you're in an NCAA athlete, you just cannot do this, I think is easier for the individual to understand, to follow, and to monitor. So if as soon as you blur the lines as to what you can gamble on, I mean, think about how you'd have to monitor and how you'd enforce that. As of now, you just can't do it.
Right.
It's either illegal under NCAA policy or it's illegal under the state, depending on your age, or both. And now if you say, oh, yeah, no, you can gamble on the NFL, you just can't gamble on college. Well, how are you going to know that information? Like, are you looking at their phones? Are you looking at their computers? What are you doing? And when you muddy those waters, monitoring becomes very difficult. And then it just opens up, well, I might as well do what I want now. And then it goes back to integrity issues.
But again, we'll see what happens because you're talking about a whole new market here. Now you got who's a great market? College athletes. They already like sports, probably. They're interested in it. They're the age demographic you're looking for, and you're looking to continue to grow this market, which is, I mean, exploding is probably not even the right word to use. So, and not only that, these states that legalize it, they're getting revenue from this. So, and the leagues are getting money too. So everyone's getting money. So adding a new market demographic is just going to be a lot of incentive to do that. So it'll be interesting how this plays out.
Yeah. And the fact that the SEC commissioner came out right after the indictments, was it 2 weeks ago, and said, we might want to rethink this. I mean, Greg Sankey has a lot of sway.
Yeah, he does.
And so I'm sure he didn't just say it by accident. I'm sure he was talking with the Big Ten commissioner, because those are the two most powerful names right now in college athletics. So I am curious to see what they're going to do with it, but I never try to make predictions because they always tend to be wrong. But that caught my eye when he came out and said, we need to slow this down.
Speaking of revenue that you all were just talking about how these places are making so much money in revenue. I was talking to Mark, who works with you all, and he was basically just giving me some information toward this show. And he was telling me how you all were coming with your insights as of, or at least information saying that Ohio has seen nearly $17 billion in wagers since legalization. That's a lot of money.
But just this year, I have the numbers. I looked at them last night. Between January and August of this year, there was $6.1 billion wagered in the state.
Just
And
Ohio.
the state government, just Ohio. In total this year, the estimate for the country is going to be about $150 billion of wagering. And now the taxes are going to be different by state. So Ohio takes 20% of what we call gross gaming revenue. So there's the wagers, which we call the handle, and then there's what you pay out in winnings, and then what's left over is gross gaming revenue. And they take 20%. So Ohio this year has brought in $119 million in revenue from gambling, and it's the fourth largest state. So New York is the largest, and you've got New Jersey, Illinois, Ohio, and we're not even talking about. We were talking about this off air beforehand. Both California and Texas, which are the biggest states, do not have legalized sports gambling. So we're talking about $150 billion for the country as a whole this year wagering. And that's not including the two biggest states and a limited number of bets that happens in Florida because of their unique situation with the Seminole tribe and where betting can occur. So now we're talking about the three largest states, and two of them aren't doing it, and one of them is limited, and it's still $150 billion. So yeah, there's money. It's just washing over all of this.
And the downside of that, looking at this study from University of California, San Diego, they actually said that help seeking for gambling addiction online, kind of like looking up search terms for people concerned about that, has gone up 67% in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. And speaking of that study, do you think that people with gambling addictions or gambling addictions have risen since sports betting has become so, I guess, global, and now you see it everywhere with all the commercials and bet this and bet that and all the advertisements?
Yeah, that's the tough empirical question because since this is getting rolled out state by state, you have some states like New Jersey that have had it for 7 years now. You have other states that are within their first year. So the numbers are roughly about 2.5 million people have a gambling addiction, and somewhere about 8 million people are what we would call sort of have moderate problems. I would anticipate those numbers to rise. We saw that in Europe, which, sports gambling has been around in Europe for a lot longer. But it's hard to have hard data on this simply because it's so new and it just takes time. But those are the rough estimates that we have now. And yeah, I would anticipate those numbers to go higher.
Yeah, gambling can be a real issue. Like it is a real thing. There are people out there who have gambling addictions. It's very real. And the things that we're seeing in the NBA and other places also, and just in professional sports in general. I say NBA because of the recent Terry Rozier, Thompson things going on, but it's a real thing, and people have issues out there, especially with that. So it's just kind of crazy to see where things have gone thus far. Do you all think?
And sports?
Mhm.
Sorry, I was going to say sports gambling is different too because sports gambling is combining something that lots of people like. People like watching sports, and it's also giving them some illusion of control. So you often hear people say, "Well, it's like poker." But in poker, you actually have some control. Yes, there's randomness, the cards coming out, but you have control over how you bet, your strategy, how you read people. You don't have any of that control in sports gambling. You have no control over the outcome. So it feels like you do, but and you could be more informed than somebody else. But just thinking this past weekend, how many people picked the Panthers to win that game against the Packers? right? That was the largest, I think, point spread game in the last maybe decade, something like that. It was a pretty big upset. And so you had lots of people go, oh, no, the Panthers can't do this. The quarterback play is not very good. The Packers have all this stuff. And so it feels like they have control. They have no control. It's like if I was betting on a poker game itself. I'm not playing. I know all the players. I'm going to bet on the outcome. And so that's what makes sports gambling so different than other types of gambling. So if you're addicted to roulette, okay, well, I mean, that's not a bad thing to be addicted to, but it's completely out of your control, and you should know it's out of your control. It's just the ball going around. But man, sports gambling, I like it. I like that game. I want to watch the NFL. I want to watch, fill in the blank. So
it's like the control is knowing that you have no control, and that's kind of the only thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only thing that's certain. It's like the only thing I'm sure of is I have no control of this. And I guess some people kind of take peace within that. And it's like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen with playing cards. I know it's random, but at least I know, regardless of what happens, I can't do anything. You just have to play and just deal with the outcome.
Yeah.
Do you all think that sports gambling could become legalized statewide? Not statewide, but countrywide in all states in America?
The one state that I think you'll have trouble in is Alabama. I think I'm still correct in this. I don't think Alabama has even a state lottery. So I think all the rest of the states do. So if I was to have to pick one state that is probably farthest from this, would be Alabama. Though maybe there's a push. Every state is so different that we're trying to constantly keep up with what states are doing. But yeah, I think it would be in most states. Alabama might be the exception.
The other thing is, and this might surprise you, but there are a state, I don't know if there's more than one, but I think Georgia is one that has a constitutional rule against gambling. So you'd have to actually repeal the Constitution, that provision. So every state is unique. But ultimately, there's also some Indian gaming issues in some of the states that they got to sort out to make it fully legal. But obviously, the trend is that the states are adopting this, and that's where we're headed. We haven't seen anyone unadopted that I know of that's added.
Yeah, no. Once it's legalized, they might work at the margins again. Ohio's looking at certain prop bets, but I haven't seen any major move to remove it from any state.
Speaking of sports, I believe the Carolina Panthers are on a 4 or 5 game win streak right now. I think they're second in the NFC South, right behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which completely blew my mind. Like, wow. Falcons just lost against Patriots too. It's crazy.
I mean, it just goes back to you're dealing with things that you don't have any control over. Yesterday, Boise State men's basketball team lost to a Division II team from Hawaii. I don't know if you saw that, but a Division II team beat them. I have no idea what the point spreads are or anything on that, but like that feels as random as you can get. Division II team does not just go out and beat, and it was at Boise. So, yeah.
Wow. And
we like sports. We like sports.
For sure. And you all were talking about different prop bets and spreads, and could these bets over here kind of raise a red flag? And they just made me think, because if, say, one bet or one prop for a bet or whatever it is for the books, if an odd number of people are just going after this bet, that's going to raise a red flag to people and say, hold on, what's going on over there? Yep. Why did all of you take the under 20 minutes before the game and no new information has come out about said player or said team? What's going on? And so I understand why it can raise some red flags to people.
Well, it's interesting, like, who is raising the red flag in the first place? It's the sports books, because they're the ones who have the information. So that in itself is of interest. And that's what we're seeing, like we're talking about with Terry Rozier and the NBA and all that. It's a sports book who's saying, hey, someone's ripping me off because look how many bets are coming in on this one pitch that Emmanuel Clay's throw for the Guardians, for example. And that's how he ended up getting in this situation, because Sportsbook saw it, reported to the league identified it, and now he's who knows what's going to happen. I don't think they made a final decision on him yet, but he was suspended pretty quickly.
And I don't think most people realize that sports books are legally allowed to ban bettors.
Yeah.
And so if you win too much, like they're just going to ban you, and they share that information with other sports books.
Yeah.
So that's why, look, the sports books make money on losing bets.
Imagine that kind of business. Right? As soon as your business is going bad, just cut them off and keep making money from everyone else.
Yeah, and legally can do that. And so that's another conversation we have for people. The sports books, they're not your friend. Yes, they have very flashy commercials, but they can stop you from betting. And they give you money, like all these free bets. They're flooding people. They're not doing that to winners. They're doing that to people who are losing. And so they're just trying to keep you involved.
And yeah, now I saw in the commercials, if you're winning by something like 21 after the third quarter, they'll pay out. Of course they'll pay out, because then they want you to get back in the fourth quarter and lose it all. They think it's going to end that way. But the biggest concern too that I have is when you start looking into this, where they really make the big money is actually off these problem gamblers we're talking about. And that's a huge concern. These people that are in over their head, prop gamblers, I've seen like 10% of your, asset value or income, that kind of level of gambling is obviously where they're going to make a ton of money. And so how do they get more of those in they widen the net, and they try to get more people involved, and hopefully more people get hooked, and that's how they make money. So that's the sad part of the industry is where really people really suffer. They're making their money.
Yeah, definitely. And then with them legally being able to ban someone from betting, I think at some casinos, if you win too much, they can ask you to leave and just say, all right, you got your money.
Right.
All right, you got us this time, get out. That type of thing. And it's very real. Absolutely. And then with people betting on sports, it's just, I don't want to say it's a phenomenon, but it's something that's gotten just astronomical from where it began, and you see it everywhere now. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's because we have access for cell phones. So if we had done this legalization, let's just say in the 1980s, we wouldn't see some of the same things that we're talking about, because you would have had to physically go to a place. But now you don't, right? You just have to be within the state borders, and you just take out your phone and you can place a bet. In fact, of all sports betting, just talking about sports betting, 95% of it is done online, which is just a number that is just astronomical. You can't even think about that. So then 95% of 150 billion is done online. So it's just a very different world because we have access technology.
And not only that, with that, there's an advertisement that pops up. I read an article every 13 seconds, whether you're seeing a sign at the stadium or some other type of advertisement. I think one of the regulatory issues that really the states or the federal government should address is the advertising piece of this, making it just so in your face and so normalized. We've had other industries where, it's legal, but we don't like promote it necessarily. We have limits to it. I mean, cigarettes being one that's been, I think, pretty effective. You don't see ads everywhere. You can get cigarettes. Doing something like that would move this in a better direction.
Yeah, there's precedence. I mean, you can't advertise hard liquor in certain situations. So, we have First Amendment precedent here of being able to limit the type of advertisement that we see, and particularly because, and it makes sense, every company does this. They're showing the best of it. Hey, this is what's going to happen if you win. But we know that again, that's just not the case for most people.
Absolutely. And last question, what is something that you both are doing or going to do? Well, I'll rephrase it. What is something that you are going to do moving forward to sort of protect and prevent your students and your students in general, college students in general, from getting, I guess, too enamored within that sports betting culture?
I think what we're really interested in is just an ongoing conversation. That's why we really appreciate you having us on, quite frankly, because who knows, our students may watch this too. They probably will. And We just want to see where those avenues exist, where we can bring light to a topic that has billions of dollars on the other side of our voice, and help people think through both sides of it and make decisions that are right for them and are best. And so we're going to do that one-on-one. Dr. Pincin and I have set up like bigger kind of auditorium type of presentation that we've done. We've done a couple of those. We'll plan to keep doing those. And we just kind of put ourselves out there for the conversation for anyone who wants to talk with us about it. So thanks for doing that with us today.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And like I said, it's a conversation. We don't want to come across, even in this interview, and hopefully not, as sort of browbeater nanny state. We're trying to help people understand that there are risks to the behavior that you might be engaged in. And it's particularly an issue, again, because we're around college students. We want you to make wise decisions now, because you can set yourself back at 20 years old in a way that you don't need to. And so we want people to make wise decisions rather than saying you shouldn't do X, but more of, have you thought about what you're doing, why you're doing it? Now, there might be other, if I was talking to, say, the Congress, I would have a different discussion. It'd be very, very different than if we're talking to the students.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I understand that for sure. I want to thank you all for joining the show. So thank you, Dr. Pincin, and thank you, Colonel Thompson from Cedarville, and shout out to Mark for helping set this up. Mark Weinstein, shout out to him as well. Shout out to everybody over at Cedarville. But again, I want to thank you all for the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Byron.
Sure, absolutely. And you all can follow me on social media. Well, before I even get into that, hope you all enjoyed the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe when you subscribe. Click the notification bell. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, or X as they call it now, and Instagram at BJT_era. That's BJT_ERA. And like I always say, hope you all have a good one.